Prisca, how many times do I have to ask for one simple thing? She hurried in with a tray, balancing a cup of coffee that trembled in her hand. I'm sorry, sir. The blend you asked for was out of stock, so I... Excuses, he cut her off, eyes narrowing. You've been here long enough to know how I like things done. If you can't handle a simple task, what are you even doing here? Prisca lowered her gaze. I'll make another one right away. Don't bother, he said coldly, leaning back in his chair. You've already wasted enough of my time. Her heart sank as she placed the tray down quietly. Sir, I didn't mean to upset you. Charles didn't respond. His attention returned to the laptop in front of him, though the flicker of tension in his jaw didn't go unnoticed. She wanted to say something, maybe remind him that he hadn't eaten all day, but she knew better than to speak when he was in one of his moods. He looked exhausted, eyes shadowed, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy, but pride wouldn't let him show it. When she turned to leave, his voice followed. Close the door behind you. Prisca nodded, keeping her tears in check until she was outside. She leaned against the corridor wall, breathing hard. Working for Charles was nothing like she expected. The mansion was beautiful, but it felt like a cage, one ruled by silence, deadlines, and his unpredictable temper. Still, she couldn't afford to quit. Her younger sister's school fees depended on this job. Taking a deep breath, she forced a smile and went back to her duties. The next morning, she arrived early, as usual. The mansion was quiet except for the faint sound of Charles's mother coughing upstairs. Prisca carried a tray of breakfast up to her room and smiled warmly. Good morning, ma'am. How are you feeling today? Charles's mother smiled softly. Better, thanks to you, dear. You're the only one in this house with a kind heart. Prisca's cheeks warmed. That means a lot to me, ma'am. Don't let my son scare you, the woman said gently. He's not as cold as he seems. He's just protecting himself. Prisca nodded. I know. He works so hard. I just wish he'd rest sometimes. Rest? Charles's voice came from the doorway. You two are conspiring against me now? Prisca nearly jumped. No, sir. We were just... He gave a faint smile that vanished almost instantly. Mother, your doctor said you shouldn't be sitting up this early. His mother smiled knowingly. You should learn to greet people first, Charles. He sighed. Good morning, Mother. Good morning, Prisca. Prisca's eyes widened slightly. That was the first time he'd said her name. Good morning, sir. Breakfast in the dining room in 10 minutes, he said, turning away. Prisca nodded quickly, her heart beating faster than it should. That afternoon, the mansion buzzed with noise. Olive, Charles's fiancée, was back from her Europe trip. Everyone was rushing to prepare for her arrival. Prisca didn't know much about her, but the stories from the other staff were enough. Beautiful, demanding, and used to getting whatever she wanted. At night, the mansion was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows as Prisca moved through the hallway, carrying a tray of tea for Charles. He'd been in his study all day, skipping lunch again. When she entered, he didn't look up right away. Papers covered his desk, the glow from his laptop making his face look pale and tired. Sir, she said gently, setting the tray down. You should rest. You've been at this for hours. I don't need rest? He muttered without looking at her. She hesitated. Even machines need to cool down sometimes. That made him glance up. His eyes met hers, sharp at first, then softening. You talk too much for a maid. She smiled faintly. Maybe you just don't listen enough. For the first time in weeks, his lips twitched into something close to a smile. The tension in the room eased slightly. Sit, he said after a pause, his voice quieter. Prisca blinked. Sir? Sit, just for a minute, he repeated. She obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the rain and the faint hum of the desk lamp. Charles leaned back, rubbing his temples. Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough? Prisca hesitated, then nodded. Every day. But I keep trying anyway. He looked at her then, really looked at her. The gentleness in her voice, the quiet strength in her eyes, it unsettled him more than he cared to admit. You're not afraid to talk to me, he said quietly. I was at first, she replied. But fear doesn't make people better. Understanding does. Something in her tone broke through his defenses. He stared at her for a long time, the air between them heavy with something unspoken. Prisca, he said softly. Sir, his voice dropped lower. You should call me Charles when it's just us. Her heart skipped. That wouldn't be proper. Neither is the way I feel right now, he whispered. She froze, unsure what to say. The storm outside grew louder, wind brushing against the windows like a heartbeat. Charles stood slowly, moving around the desk until he was beside her. He didn't touch her. Not yet. Just looked down at her with eyes that carried too much emotion for words. You should go, he murmured, almost to himself. Prisca rose, her breath shallow. Good night, sir. She turned to leave, but when her hand brushed his by accident, both of them stopped. The spark was small but real. He exhaled, voice strained. Prisca, this isn't right. But she looked up at him with eyes full of quiet understanding. Then why does it feel like it is? The silence that followed said more than anything else could. And that night, out of loneliness, out of longing, out of something neither of them fully understood, the walls between them finally fell. It wasn't planned, it wasn't spoken of again, but it was real. And it was that night that changed everything. When Olive finally arrived, her perfume filled the air before she even entered the living room. Charles, she called sweetly, Kenke, throwing her arms around him. He smiled faintly, a rare sight, and held her close. Prisca watched from a distance, pretending to adjust the flowers on the table. Olive's eyes swept the room and stopped on her. Who's this? The maid, Charles replied simply. The maid, Olive repeated, her tone smooth but sharp. She looks rather disciplined. I like that. Prisca bowed slightly. Welcome home, ma'am. Oh, thank you, dear, Olive said, then turned to Charles. I'll need her to handle my things. You know how picky I am about my wardrobe. Charles nodded. She'll take care of it. For days, Prisca worked harder than ever. Olive was beautiful but unbearable, demanding new sheets, throwing clothes around when they weren't folded perfectly, complaining about non-existent wrinkles. Still, Prisca never raised her voice. Yes, ma'am, was her constant reply, even when Olive mocked her accent or ignored her greetings. One evening, Prisca returned from the laundry room to find Charles standing in the hallway, his tone cold. Come to my study, now. Her pulse quickened. Yes, sir. When she entered, he didn't ask her to sit. Did you touch Olive's jewelry box? Her heart dropped. No, sir, I didn't. She said her diamond bracelet is missing, Charles said flatly. The guards confirmed you were the last person in her room. That's not true, Prisca said, her voice trembling. I only arranged her clothes. I didn't even open. Charles slammed his hand on the desk, making her flinch. Do you think I'm a fool? I give you food, shelter, and a decent salary, and this is how you repay me? Prisca's throat tightened. Please, sir, you know I would never steal anything. Enough, he snapped. I trusted you, Prisca. Don't make this worse. She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. I didn't do it. I swear to God I didn't. He turned away, jaw clenched. We'll see about that. Security will check your locker. If we find anything, you're out of here tonight. Prisca's lips quivered. Sir, please, I beg you. I didn't. I said enough. A few minutes later, security came into the servants' quarters. Prisca stood helplessly as they searched her locker. Her world crashed when one of them pulled out a diamond bracelet wrapped in a handkerchief. Prisca gasped, That's not mine. Someone must have. Charles appeared behind them, his voice icy. That's all I needed to see. Sir, please believe me, she cried. I would never. You're fired, he said, cutting her off. Pack your things and get out before I have you arrested. Her lips trembled. Charles, please. Don't call my name, he said sharply. You've already lost the right to speak it. Tears streamed down her face. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but nothing came out. The pain in her chest was too deep. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You'll regret this one day. Charles didn't answer. He simply turned and walked away. Prisca gathered her few belongings and left the mansion, her uniform soaked in sweat and tears. She didn't look back, not even once. But as she walked out of the gate, clutching her small bag, one thought echoed in her heart. God, why does love always come with pain? Prisca spent the night in a small guest house on the outskirts of the city, curled up on a thin mattress with her arms wrapped around her knees. Her body trembled, not from the cold, but from heartbreak. Everything she worked for, gone in one night. She closed her eyes, replaying every moment in that mansion, every harsh word, every small smile she'd once caught on Charles's face when he thought no one was watching. He didn't even give her a chance to explain. The memory of him turning away crushed her. By morning, her head pounded, her stomach turned, and her eyes were swollen from crying. She dragged herself to the small bathroom and splashed water on her face. But as she stared at her reflection, she froze. Her skin looked pale, her lips dry, and beneath her hand, her stomach churned again. Not from hunger this time. Prisca frowned, trying to remember the last time she'd seen her period. It had been weeks ago, maybe more. Her hands began to shake. No, it can't be. But deep down, she already knew. She ran out into the street, heading for the nearest pharmacy. A few minutes later, she sat in the small restroom behind the store, clutching the test. When the two pink lines appeared, her breath hitched. The world spun around her. Charles's child. Her knees buckled. She sat on the floor, staring blankly at the wall. Tears slipped down her face, not just from fear, but from the cruel irony of it all. The man who had accused her of theft, the man who fired her without mercy, had left her carrying his child. She pressed a trembling hand over her stomach. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'll protect you. Even if no one believes me, I'll protect you." For the next few weeks, Prisca struggled to survive. She moved into a smaller room closer to the city market and began selling handmade bracelets and food to make ends meet. Each day was hard, but her belly was growing, and so was her resolve. She refused to hate Charles, though his memory haunted her every night. Meanwhile, Charles's life looked perfect on the outside. The company was booming, Olive was planning their engagement party, and everyone called him the youngest billionaire in the state. But inside, he was restless. Something felt wrong. It started small, missing the sound of footsteps in the hallway, the quiet way Prisca used to place his coffee on his desk, the faint hum she made while cleaning. He tried to ignore it, but her absence echoed through the house. Even his mother noticed. "You've been quiet lately," she said one morning. "I'm fine," he muttered. "You're not. You've been snapping at everyone since Prisca left." Charles's jaw tightened. "She stole from us? You expect me to feel sorry for her?" His mother looked at him calmly. "Charles, that girl looked me in the eye and said she didn't do it. I believe her." He shook his head. "The bracelet was in her locker, Mother. Or someone wanted it to look that way," she said softly. "Olive was the only one who had access to that room before Prisca." Charles froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Olive might not be who you think she is," he sighed. "You're overthinking again." His mother gave him a long look. "Just promise me you'll open your eyes, son, before it's too late." That night, Charles found Olive in his study, rummaging through his desk. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply. She flinched, forcing a smile. "Nothing, babe. I was just looking for your car keys." "Keys don't belong in locked drawers," he said, crossing his arms. Her expression faltered. "Charles, don't start." "I'm not starting anything," he said coldly, "but I'm realizing something. Since you came back, everything feels off." Olive scoffed. "Oh, please, don't tell me you're still thinking about that maid." He didn't answer. She smirked. "Of course you are. I saw the way you looked at her. You pitied her, maybe even liked her." Charles's voice hardened. "Watch what you're saying." "Or what?" Olive snapped. "You'll fire me too? Like you did her?" He stared at her, something dark flickering in his eyes. "You planted that bracelet, didn't you?" Olive froze. "What?" "Answer me," he demanded. She laughed, but it was shaky. "You've lost your mind." He took a step closer. "My mother said you were in that room before her. You had the motive, Olive, was that you were jealous." Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. "So what if I did? She was getting too comfortable around you, Charles. You didn't even notice it, did you? The way she looked at you." Charles's fists clenched. "You ruined her life because of your insecurity?" "She was just a maid," Olive hissed. "And you're mine." Charles's voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. "Not anymore." Her face paled. "What do you mean?" "I mean, get out," he said coldly. "We're done." Olive's expression twisted in disbelief. "You'll regret this, Charles," she shouted, but he didn't turn around. When she stormed out, he sat on the edge of his desk, running a hand through his hair. His chest felt tight. He had fired an innocent woman, and he couldn't even apologize because he didn't know where she was. He spent days trying to track her down. Her phone number was disconnected, and none of the staff knew where she went. The guilt grew heavier each night. Weeks later, he finally got a lead, a small jewelry shop in the market. The owner said a woman named Prisca had sold handmade bracelets there. He went there the next morning. The market was noisy, crowded with people shouting prices and carrying baskets. He looked around, his heart pounding. Then he saw her. Prisca stood under a faded umbrella, arranging bracelets on a wooden tray. Her belly was round, her face pale but still beautiful in a quiet, painful way. Charles froze. His throat went dry. When she looked up and saw him, the color drained from her face. She turned quickly, grabbing her things. "Prisca, wait!" he called out, pushing through the crowd. She didn't stop. He caught up to her a few meters away, his hand catching her wrist gently. "Please, just listen to me." She pulled away. "What do you want from me, sir?" He winced at the word sir. "I came to apologize." "It's too late for that," she said coldly. "You made your judgment. You didn't even listen." "I was wrong," he said softly. Olive confessed. Prisca's eyes glistened. "And what difference does that make now?" "It means I owe you the truth," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You didn't deserve what I did to you." "I'm sorry." She looked away, tears threatening to fall. "Sorry doesn't change the fact that you threw me out like trash." He swallowed hard. "I know, and I'll spend every day trying to make it right if you let me." Her voice shook. "You can't fix everything, Charles." He looked down, his voice low. "At least let me help you." Her eyes filled with quiet pain. "You've done enough." She turned to leave, but he noticed the small curve of her stomach again. His heart stopped. "Prisca, are you?" She froze. His voice softened. "Are you pregnant?" She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "Yes." He took a step closer, his voice cracking. "Is it mine?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Does it matter? You made it clear what you think of me." He swallowed hard, pain flashing in his eyes. "Prisca, please don't walk away from me again. Not like this." She looked up at him, broken and fierce all at once. "You already fired me once, Charles. You don't get to do it twice." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the middle of the market, frozen. Charles watched her go, feeling the weight of every mistake crush him at once. He wanted to chase after her, but his legs wouldn't move. All he could do was whisper, "I'll find a way to make this right." Days turned into weeks after their encounter in the market, but Charles couldn't get Prisca out of his mind. Her voice, her trembling hands, the pain in her eyes when she said, "You already fired me once." He couldn't sleep. The image of her walking away haunted him every night. Charles hired private investigators to quietly make sure she was safe. He didn't want to scare her or push her further away. But knowing she was struggling, working late hours despite her pregnancy, tore him apart. His mother noticed his distraction one evening at dinner. "You found her, didn't you?" she asked softly. He nodded, staring into his glass of water. "She wants nothing to do with me." "Can you blame her?" his mother replied gently. "You broke her heart, Charles. Sometimes sorry isn't enough. You have to show it." And he looked up slowly. "How do I do that?" "By being there. Quietly, consistently, without expecting forgiveness." Her words stayed with him. The next morning, Charles drove to the market again, but this time he didn't approach her. He parked across the street and watched from his car. Prisca was setting up her table, laughing softly with a little boy who helped her carry goods. The sight made something ache inside him. He began sending anonymous help, paying her rent, clearing her medical bills, and arranging small deliveries of food through local shops. She never knew it was him, but he didn't care. He just wanted her and the baby safe. One rainy evening, Prisca was closing her stall when she suddenly felt dizzy. She held her belly, gasping for breath. The world blurred. "Prisca!" the little boy shouted, catching her arm as she stumbled. She collapsed, barely conscious. Within minutes, a black car pulled up beside them. Charles rushed out, soaking in the rain. "Call the hospital now," he barked at his driver. He scooped her into his arms, his heart racing. "Stay with me, Prisca, please." Her eyelids fluttered weakly. "Why? Are you here?" "Because I never stopped caring," he said, his voice breaking. She tried to speak, but everything went dark. Hours later, she woke up in a private hospital room, IV tubes running into her arm. The first thing she saw was Charles sitting by her bed, head bowed, still wearing the same rain-soaked shirt. She blinked slowly. "What are you doing here?" He looked up, relief flooding his face. "You scared me." She tried to sit up, but he gently stopped her. "Don't move too much. The doctor said you need rest. You nearly fainted from exhaustion." Her lips trembled. "You shouldn't be here." "I should have been here long ago," he said quietly. There was silence for a moment, heavy but not cold. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why are you doing all this now?" He took a deep breath. Because I was blind, Prisca. I let pride and anger destroy everything. You didn't deserve what I did to you. Tears welled in her eyes. Charles, you fired me in front of everyone. You didn't even let me explain. I know, he said, voice thick with regret. And if I could turn back time, I would. But since I can't, I want to make things right moving forward. Prisca looked away. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't expect you to, he said softly. I just want to earn it. He paused, then added quietly, the doctor said the baby's healthy, about 4 months along. Her hand went instinctively to her belly. A faint smile touched her lips. Thank God. Charles looked at her, eyes glistening. May I be a part of your life again? Not because of guilt, but because I want to. Prisca studied him for a long moment. I don't need your money, Charles. He shook his head. I'm not offering money. I'm offering myself, to be a father, and maybe, one day, a man you can forgive. Her heart ached at his words. She could see sincerity in his eyes now, the arrogance gone, replaced with something human, fragile even. I'll think about it, she whispered. That's all I ask. For weeks, Charles visited quietly, bringing meals, helping with checkups, driving her to appointments when she allowed it. Slowly, the tension began to ease. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes they talked about small things, safe things. Then one afternoon, as they walked through the hospital garden, Prisca asked, Why did you never believe me that day? He stopped walking, staring ahead. Because I'd spent my whole life thinking control meant strength, that emotions made me weak. You made me feel things I didn't know how to handle. Prisca looked at him. So you punished me for it, he nodded quietly. Yes, and I'll regret it forever. She sighed, brushing her hair back. You hurt me more than you'll ever know, Charles. I know, he said softly, but if you let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. For the first time, she didn't look away. We'll see. Months later, Prisca gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Charles was in the hospital room holding her hand as she cried through the pain. When the baby's cry finally filled the room, both of them broke down. Charles held the tiny child carefully, his voice trembling. He's perfect. Prisca smiled weakly. He looks like you. He laughed softly, tears streaming down his cheeks. Poor kid. She chuckled faintly through exhaustion. No, lucky kid. The nurses left them alone. For a moment, it was just the three of them, quiet, raw, whole. Charles looked at her. Prisca, I know I don't deserve this moment, but thank you for letting me be here. She smiled faintly. Maybe we both deserve a second chance. He reached out, brushing her hair gently from her face. You don't know how much that means to me. Weeks later, after she recovered, Charles invited her and the baby to his home, the same mansion that once broke her. Prisca hesitated at the gate, memories rushing back. He walked beside her. I know it's hard, but this time it's different. No servants, no shouting, just us. When they entered, the house felt softer somehow. Charles had redecorated. No harsh lights, no tension. The kitchen smelled like freshly baked bread, the kind he'd once refused to eat. Prisca smiled faintly. You've changed this place. He looked at her gently. You changed me first. That night, as the baby slept in her arms, Charles sat beside her on the couch. You know, sometimes I still wake up at night thinking about that day I fired you. It haunts me. Prisca looked at him quietly. Then stop letting it define you. Learn from it instead. He smiled, small and genuine. I will. There was silence again, soft and comforting this time. Charles looked at her hand resting on the baby's blanket. Slowly, hesitantly, he covered it with his own. Prisca didn't pull away. Her voice was barely a whisper. You really want this, don't you? He nodded. More than anything. She smiled faintly. Then don't just say it, Charles. Show it. Every day. He squeezed her hand gently. I will, for both of you. Months passed and life slowly healed. Prisca opened her own small jewelry boutique with Charles's quiet support. He never took credit. He just stood by, watching her rebuild her life with pride. Sometimes when customers left the shop, he'd step in, holding their son. He's growing fast, he'd say with a grin. Prisca would smile softly, just like his father. Their love wasn't rushed. It grew slowly, carefully, built on forgiveness, not fantasy. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Charles stood behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. You know, he whispered, I used to think money could fix everything, but it couldn't fix losing you. Prisca leaned back against him, smiling. That's because love doesn't listen to bank accounts. He chuckled quietly. Then I guess I'm finally learning what matters. She turned to face him. And what's that? He looked into her eyes. You. Their lips met softly, not desperate, not hurried, just real. When they pulled apart, Prisca whispered, "You finally made it right, Charles." He smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. No, we did. The camera could have faded there. The billionaire, the once fired maid, and their child, proof that sometimes the greatest redemption isn't in success, but in love found after pain. And for the viewers, her voice would linger softly in the closings. Don't judge a heart too quickly. Sometimes that the people who hurt you the most are the ones who learn to love you the deepest.